Alright, so today we are going to be starting a discussion on populations. Alright, specifically we're going to look at organisms that are not humans, and then tomorrow we'll be very focused on humans, but we can apply the same principles that are in this lecture to human populations as well. Could someone please read this out for me?
Objectives. Understand the difference between the effect of density-dependent and density-independent factors on population growth.
Great, thank you. So, first off, how do we even measure population size and density? How do we do that? Census. Census for humans. Yeah, what about other organisms outside of humans? How do we do that? Yeah, we can estimate populations. Yeah. What about the researchers that go into the fields? Into nature, and they will count the organisms that they see. Yeah.
Oh, in every few acres. That would be fine. And you just
Then density, in this case, how do we get that? When we're talking about individuals and populations of people, or of organisms. Okay, first of all, what is density? Just in general, right? Doesn't have to be related to the population, just what is density?
Isn't it the volume of, or the mass of an object?
Yeah, so it's the mass of an object per unit volume, right? So the amount of stuff in a specific amount of space. Same thing for population density. Okay, so it's the amount or the number of individuals in a specific area at a given time. Okay? So, when we're looking at populations, there are actually 5 major characteristics that are important to know. One is population size. We need to know the total number of individuals within a defined area at a given time. Population density is the number of individuals per unit area at a given time. So this is simply the number. This is the actual number of individuals divided by the area. Our third one is population distribution. So a description of how individuals are distributed with respect to one another. So that's either how spread out are they, how close are they. And I have images on subsequent slides for these to show you the visuals as well. And then we have our sex ratio, which is the ratio of females to males in a population. And then we have our age structure, which is a description of how many individuals fit into a particular age category in a population. And I just wanted to note the sex ratio is a bit dated because it only is talking about 2 different sexes, when in reality, if we're talking about this with humans, there are more. So I just wanted to make that clear. But with other organisms, generally there are only 2. Any questions about these characteristics? So these 5 characteristics will also help us visualize what our population looks like, or what our population of the organism that we're looking at looks like. Is it okay if I move on?
Yeah.
So, population size. Generally speaking, it's labeled as a capital N. It can also be shown as a lowercase n. Now, this is a population of humans globally. We're here. This is us. Does anyone know how many people we have in the U.S.?
365 million.
Yeah, like 9 million.
Roughly, yeah, 360 million. How about China and India?
There's the billions. I think China's like 1.2 billion. No,
Yeah.
India's like 1.2 billion.
Yeah, so China I think is about 1.3 billion, and then India is a little less than that. So comparatively, there's roughly 3 times more people in China and India than here with us. Just to give you kind of a sense of how many people are there. Now, when you're talking about population density, remember that it's the number of individuals in a specific area, not just the number, not just the number of individuals like here. Okay. So these lighter colors, generally speaking, when you see a population density diagram, the lighter colors are going to be less dense, the darker colors are going to be more dense. So you can see that there's fewer people here and more people in the darker ones. Okay. So that's just showing you the difference of low density versus higher density. Now this is a distribution map. So again, it still has the density factor with the different scale of colors, but it's also showing you location-wise where people tend to be more concentrated or be less concentrated. Okay, so we're here, this is us. We're really dark, we're in the purple, because a lot of people want to be here, right? But you can see that there are less dense up here, really less dense here. Makes a lot of sense.
What are you trying to say?
Right? So there's certain locations where people really want to be, because they're cities, there's things to do, and then you can see the distribution. So this is just showing you where people within a population are. That's another way to think about the distribution of it. And then we have our sex ratio. So our blue is, so this is our key for that image. Our blue is more females than males. Our green is the same. Our pinkish red is more males than females. And then gray is no data. Okay. So as you can see here, in the US, we have more females than males. In, say, India, they have more males than females. Australia, there is the same number. This is just showing you the global population and the sex ratio. And we have one last thing, and that's our age structure or ratio. So this is demonstrating different age groups within a population. So our red is pre-reproductive ages of 0 to 14. And then we have our reproductive ages of 15 to 44. And then our post-reproductive ages from 45 to 80. So as you can see, there's 3 different colors, and each block is like roughly 5 years. So you go from 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and then 10 to 14, roughly. Any questions about any of these characteristics? So, this is actually an example that I wanted to bring up with California condors. Has anyone ever heard of this bird before? Does anyone know how big the bird is? Mind you, this is a coyote that it's chasing.
I'm gonna say 8.
Really close, it's actually 9 feet. The average is about 9 feet. So from one end of the wing to the other is 9 feet. That's really big. So, they are known to be critically endangered, specifically because So you can see in 1987, there were literally 22 left in the entire state of California, and I think they are native to California, so they aren't really found anywhere else. So in order to implement measures that will help them survive and help them reproduce, there needs to be some sort of collection of data about population size and factors that also impact the population. They did that in 1987, as there were 22 condors left in the wild because of poaching, poisoning, and accidents. Okay? So those are the factors that affected the population. In 2014, there are actually 437 in captive breeding programs, which is really, really great, because that means that we were able to help this population reproduce and survive and actually get back to where it should be. Now, it's not at its historical level, as you can see here, but it is getting there. So this is what can happen when you have scientists and people rally behind saving critically endangered organisms. And we can do this for a lot of different organisms, which is cool.